play entry for Disrupt Gaming. You're watching Disrupt Dominate NAL.
All right, well, it's our first day of the NA League, our second year in business. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Parker. I'm really excited to get back to this. I mean, it feels like it's been way too long since we've had this kind of competition, and it's at LAN, no less. So that's adding excitement to the bubbling cauldron in my chest. How about you, Parker?
I'm doing all right. I wish that we were in Vegas with them for this LAN, but alas, we are here, spread out, working remotely. Some of the casters are in Vegas by choice, not by necessity. But I'm really excited for this matchup in particular. We've got 4 of them today. There are 9 teams competing in the NA League so far this year, and we're starting off with a grudge match, if you can even call it that. The analysts and Veli already spoke about how Iconic is coming from the Soniqs. Soniqs has this new look roster with E United. You want to just lay some expectations for us before we get into the match?
Yeah, I definitely can. What we've seen from these teams in recent history with their new rosters is very little. The only information we've been able to glean is from the NSG DZ Pro-Am, which was an exciting competition, but not all teams took it the same amount of seriously. Disrupt was actually the team who ended up winning that against Dark Zero in the finals, and it wasn't even that close. It was a 3-0 one-sided best of 5. So Disrupt are looking pretty strong. Based on what I saw from them, they look really solid, much more solid than I expected, or than I think anyone else really expected. And they've certainly proven themselves outside of this league. But that's the thing, Parker. This league is where it matters most. Soniqs coming in, as Veli talked about, mostly the core of E United. There's a lot of expectations because of that, but it's mostly going to come down to how that core meshes with Super's leadership.
I'm very excited to see if any real changes emerge there, because this is the E United roster minus Alfama plus Super. Now, a lot was talked about the Soniqs last year in regards to how Super as an IGL did for that team. They notoriously dropped Sleben, Gomfi, Iconic, and easily leaving just Super. And stat-wise, he was the worst performer in the North American League by quite a long shot. So you have somebody whose stats aren't necessarily the best, but might have some work behind the scenes that helps elevate his team. Now, this E United squad had some struggles with leadership after they dumped Callout and Forest, and they ended up making some roster moves. You know, I think you could argue that the team made an improvement from the old E United, but they were still a bottom 2 team in the NA League. Is Super's addition to the squad, along with all of the fundamentals that come with the coaching staff of the Soniqs, is that enough to elevate this team towards that top 4 spot that the Soniqs have long said that they feel they deserve?
Yeah, it is. We have a lot of questions for both of these teams, and I think that's part of what makes this so exciting as we get ready to actually have the match and have these guys go at it and prove to everyone what the answers actually are. For both teams, no matter who you're rooting for, there's a lot left to learn. I'm mostly excited about seeing Kansan on the Soniqs play. This is going to be his first true test at a high level. And I know I've seen him play in FPL. I've seen him play at a lower level, and I think he's got a lot of talent. So if I'm keeping my eye on any one person, at least on the Soniqs, it's probably going to be Kansan, possibly also Rexen. On the other hand, though, Disrupt are ready for the walk-in, ready to get on the stage and to get this match started. So we're going to go ahead and swing over to them. And here they are. Retro, Shuttle, J90, Iconic, and Mark. An incredible lineup, and one that, as spoken about earlier, proved themselves at the DZ NSG Pro-Am by winning it quite one-sidedly. And they've looked really strong in terms of their fundamentals, their angle play, their ability to control their opponent. Very few mistakes being made by this roster, and they have that X factor of Iconic, who is always pulling out the play you least expect. They've been doing very well with the formula that they've put together. Despite how little we have to see about it, I'm still excited. I look forward to watching them play today.
From what I'd read on social media, it would seem like Red Cube will be backing them up as the stand-in coach today. Their usual coach, his evil waffle. I don't exactly know the circumstances as to why he is absent, but they have Red Cube. You might know him as he did the casting for that fun match, the content creator show match before the Six Invitational. But while we talk about that, on your screen, the new look of the Soniqs, quite literally, not only 4 new players, but new jerseys to boot. They've ditched those old baseball style jerseys and picked up something a little bit more familiar when it comes to esports. Joining the only remaining member of the last year's Soniqs in Super are Kansan, Rexon, Yeti, and Grixer, and they'll have Joe Bro as their coach, backing them up / analyst. And I know that there's a lot of storylines that are going on in the NA League right now. Will Disrupt be able to match their performance that we saw out of that Dark Zero Nerd Street Gamers Pro-Am? Will the new look of the Soniqs be good? Or will they still play kind of the same to what we saw to that old E United core? Those are the questions that I have heading into this match.
You know, I will say, Parker, leading up to the change for E United, and this is part of what made the E United, I guess, their split. It's what made their split so painful. E United was looking really good. They were improving a lot towards the end. And I'm personally really excited to see the Soniqs now, because it feels like it's just a rebirth of that same roster. So I hope that they mesh well with Super. One question we have for you, the community, is this is the matchup we've all been waiting for. Super versus Iconic. They've been going at it a lot on Twitter, and there's a little bit of a grudge building up here, and it makes sense considering Iconic used to play for Super on the Soniqs not a season before. So which one of them is going to be able to back up their tweets, Super or Iconic? And I suppose, to put it in more simple terms, which player is going to have a better performance today? Don't forget to vote on that one. You can do so at R6 Esports NA on Twitter. And it's, I think, an interesting question because, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of expectations on both of these players on different teams.
Yeah, I mean, for the Disrupt team, it's going to be coming in and trying to live up to that performance that we saw just a couple weeks ago, right? There is obviously a cloud hanging over their head to a certain extent because, as you put it, not every single team was trying their darndest in that event. You know, for a lot of teams, I think that they made a calculated decision that saving some of their strategies and waiting it out would be the better option. And, you know, bringing your big guns for the North American League. Well, here we are, day number 1 of the NA League. They want to do the best that they can. And I mean, the Soniqs had an okay result, but they didn't go anywhere near as deep as I think they probably wanted to. But once again, you have to ask that question. How much of that was them settling in as a new team? How much of that was them adapting to a new strategy? Because even though 4 members of the Soniqs played together for a good portion of last year, they're going to be coming over and playing into a different system that was, you know, presumably designed by both Joe Bro and Seth, and will be a marked contrast from the way that E United played. As for Disrupt, the 2 people in the server that I'm going to be watching today are going to be Retro and J90. Not even necessarily Iconic. I know he's the man that everybody's talking about right now, but Retro and J90 were absolutely instrumental to the performance that Disrupt put in just a couple weeks back. And if both of them show up today, it doesn't really matter what level that the Soniqs are capable of playing at, because both Retro and J90 have proven that they can take over a game.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Both of those players have been looking really solid recently. I am going to be looking at Iconic, but not for the reasons I think a lot of people expect. For me, Iconic is, well, he's that X factor. He's that player who, well, he makes plays. There he is right in front of your screen. First man up to the camera. He really can command a match. However, he also is wildly inconsistent. And that's my worry for Disrupt. Now, the reason why it might not affect Disrupt too much is because of how solid the rest of their lineup is. The incredible consistency, especially of another one of their newer players, Mark. He is one of those players that you can rely on to perform when it matters most. So if Iconic is maintained as their sole X factor, their wild card, and the rest of the roster can maintain their, you know, consistency, their rock solid nature, then this team, I mean, they're looking really good going into the season. And we've been talking about this a while also on the sidelines. You know, we haven't seen serious North American Siege competition in, what, like 2 months now? And all of these rosters, almost all of the North American rosters, have made serious changes. We don't really know practically speaking, where all of these teams lie in the standings. We have nothing to base that on other than the Pro-Am we saw recently, which is just that, a Pro-Am. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm really super excited to see these teams play, as we've been talking about. And I think you and I have already talked about how incredibly excited we are for the squads, but we're just waiting for all to get ready before we can launch into the game.
There are some small changes as well to the competitive format in regards to what is and isn't allowed. Obviously, for those of you that are following, it was talked about before, but obviously Theme Park has been axed. This was a pretty good map for Disrupt during that Dark Zero Nerd Street Gamers Pro-Am, and you're going to hear us refer back to that competition, by the way. So apologies if you're already sick of it, but
that's all we got.
It was the most recent top-level play, and some of the teams did absolutely play to their strengths. So we're going to continue to reference that because it is a good point for us to go back and look at. Now, Theme Park is out, Chalet is in. Doesn't really matter for this matchup because we've got 4 best of ones today, and the very first map we're going to be playing on is Clubhouse. So this is going to be a pretty nice map that both teams know extremely well. The map is very played out. Some would say stale at a top level because of what the meta requires you to bring. 1 to 2 hard breachers at all times, some kind of device denial, etc. We can get into that in the actual match. But in addition to that, we've also got the new Tachanka rework and Aruni available alongside Zero, and we never really saw a lot of Zero over the previous 3 months of competition when he was available to be played. Will we potentially see more Zero pop up? That's a good question. Will we see any play of Aruni? Well, if you look at EU, if you look at LATAM, and you look at APAC, all 3 regions have already had at least 1 play day. Aruni has popped up quite a bit. Tachanka we might not see all that much of, but it will be fascinating to see the way that teams bring out Aruni, because she is a perfect place in that old utility dump meta that we saw us move out of just 3 months ago.
Yeah, we were straying away from what is sometimes known as the 20-second meta, or just the utility meta, or whatever you want to call it. We were straying away from it, and then, yeah, Aruni brought us right on back. And it's mostly because of the unavoidability. Like, you can't get around her gates. For lack of a better way of putting it, it's just you can't. So if you put up a gate somewhere, it's going to be a problem for the attacking team no matter what. There's no real way to circumvent that issue. So good gate placement can at times change the flow of the round in a more serious than some other gadgets might, or a more serious way than some other gadgets might. Like a deployable shield, that's avoidable, that's fixable, right? Explosive from below those gates. Yeah, you can burn something on them, but they can be reset as well, and they're going to be a permanent fixture. So it's something to consider for all teams, and it definitely shaves seconds off the clock, if nothing else. I expect her to be played quite a lot going into this. To get a little bit back to what you were talking about earlier, read the map, we've got Clubhouse, as you said, and it's only been played in recent history by one of these 2 teams. That's the Soniqs. They played it twice in the Pro-Am. They won it once, and they lost it once. They won against Parabellum. They lost against Space Station. Now, Disrupt hasn't played Clubhouse as of late, which means there's no good information on Disrupt's Clubhouse, which gives them a slight edge going into this. Even if the Soniqs didn't take that match very seriously, even if they weren't using all their strategies on the time they played Clubhouse in the Pro-Am, they still gave away some of their tendencies. And those will be analyzed by the, analysts over at Disrupt and picked apart and used to gain an advantage in this best of 1. Speaking of this best of 1, we finally have it ready for you all. Thank you so much for your patience. Soniqs versus Disrupt on Clubhouse. Disrupt will be starting on defense, and we'll go right into the ban phase.
I suspect that we're going to see some pretty similar bans to other top-level gameplay. You're going to see a Thatcher ban, I assume. I mean, that's about as common as they come. Let's be completely honest here. Potentially see a Capitao ban as well. Don't forget Nomad. She is also going to be available for teams to ban if they want. There's a Maverick right out the gate, though. Disrupt targeting that towards the Soniqs, and a new ban animation for those of you that haven't watched the other regions or played the game at this point. It's a lot smoother, let's put it that way. A sledge ban by the Soniqs. That is an intriguing one, but is obviously also being done very deliberately to try and push Disrupt off of that sledge roll onto Buck.
That is interesting. So you're getting rid of some of the explosives there, and quite a lot actually. That's 2 sets of nades that are relied upon on Clubhouse just gone. So you're already going to not have to worry too much about those throwable explosives. Valkyrie is a common ban. You expect that a lot more. The soft destruction and the hard destruction have been hurt here, but notably the Thatcher is not banned. And Parker was right in mentioning that the Thatcher ban is very commonplace on Theme Park. Instead, the Maverick is the one to go out. Jaeger also being banned, which is especially curious given that Sledge and Maverick were both banned, because those are your 2 primary sources of grenades. So the grenade pool is limited, but so now too is the denial pool. It's just going to be Wamai.
This is really fascinating. Valkyrie has shot up in regards to her ban rate, and we've seen this across every single region. She has been a very popular pick for those bans, so expect that to continue. Mira often will join her as well, and obviously don't shrug off Wamai. Jaeger isn't necessarily an operator that gets banned all that frequently, so that's not outside the norm, but is certainly something that you want to keep an eye on, because once again, it's not always the most conventional. In addition to everything you see right here, there's also been a change to the UI at the top, and if you'll take a look underneath our banner, you can see the fact that, well, there's a number of nitro cells displayed, there's a number of deployable shields remaining, there's a number of bulletproof cameras, reinforcements, etc. It's a very quick and handy guide to secondary utility. As you can see on the left-hand side, 5 of 5 spawn drones remaining. There are 9 breaches available, 3 flashbangs and 1 claymore. That's very handy for the casual viewer to just be able to look up, glance at the utility, and know exactly what is remaining.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think it's going to be a useful tool moving into the future. Also worth considering, as we go a little bit of a step back to the Sledge ban, Jesse is just talking in my ear, and apparently 3/5 of DG's players were actually Sledge mains in the last stage. Shuttle, Iconic, and Mark. Now, of course, that was, that's in the past, but it is worth noting it might be part of why the Soniqs decided to ban that Sledge out. Going into this round, look at this. Very heavy roam from Disrupt on a basement defensive Clubhouse. We've seen this before. The castle is being brought. This is obviously known as the SSG strat. They were the ones who pioneered this setup. Back when defending basement on Clubhouse, you could only do deep into the site. And they made the changes there, showed the way for the rest of North America. Here we see Disrupt doing it.
And funny enough, there's no SSG playing today, by the way. They've got the day off. They'll be back next Wednesday, but with DG's lineup, usually a Mozzie is incredibly helpful for aiding this roam. Not the case, though. None of the new operators showing themselves just yet. Things pretty standard here, and obviously for the Soniqs, they're going to have to cut through that line of defense upstairs. They're getting pretty darn close. Thatcher obviously on the board. He's going to be in the hands of none other than Grixer. Kansan's getting backed up and droned in by him, and he's made his way to construction. Looking towards CCTV is Mark is holding that angle, watching the cache door, so if somebody pushes, it'll be a little ill-advised. Mark might be able to pounce on this. Iconic is not too far off, though, and he gets found out as it's Rexon with the big kill and on the entry, and he finds a second. In fact, the Soniqs dominate the entire kill feed, taking 3 bodies away from Disrupt. That entire roam setup upstairs has completely crumbled. It's going to leave Retro and J90 in a 2v5, with Retro peeking up from the top of blue, watching towards Lounge. At this point, it looks like the entire bomb site has been vacated, and Retro with UMP in hand has his work cut out for him. He takes 1 down, but won't be able to grab anything past that, leaving just the smoke down in the bomb site to try and fend off the hordes with 50 seconds to go. Down goes Super, but he's immediately refragged by Kansan, and the Soniqs make very quick work of round number 1.
Very quick indeed, Parker. That was a one-sided affair, mostly thanks to the great gunplay of Rexon inside a lounge on Zofia. Really, I mean, if you're double peeking him and you're not able to win the fight, I don't know what to tell you. That's just Rexon being better in that instance, and we talked about how good his mechanical skill is going into this match. It's certainly something that I think a lot of people have their eyes on. Not just Rexon, but Grixer as well, and Kansan. It's been a pretty good start, but that's just 1 round. Worth keeping in mind, though, as we mentioned earlier, and I'll reiterate it again because this is an important point for many of our North American viewers who are used to best of 3s. This is a best of 1, so every round has just that little bit more impact on the overall outcome end result. So keep that in mind moving forward. Strategically, that last round was, well, it was rather bland. We had the roam from Disrupt, and it just didn't work. And that's the end of the story. The last two defenders on Disrupt got aggro because they had to, because they were at such a man disadvantage that if they hadn't gotten aggro, they would have lost anyway. And yeah, that's it. Soniqs won their fights.
It was that roam, right? We saw within the span of 2 seconds, all 3 offsite players from Disrupt were taken down.
Yeah.
And you had Grixer droning aggressively from Master. He was able to take construction. Kansan was right behind him, and, you know, Super got in on the fun as well. And I mean, when you're Hibana, you don't necessarily want to be involved in that altercation. You do at least have a Yeti, who is now pre-workout Yeti, by the way, for those of you that are looking. He's the same guy, just maybe he's a little bit more animated right now. If he did take his pre-workout, I'm not entirely certain.
What was his most recent deadlift? Was like 320 pounds or something like that?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what it was because I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, anyway.
I just don't know what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
what do
he
want
can.
from
You know
me?
what? He's a very fit individual. He's definitely working on it, and it's working great.
He's absolutely massive. He's a huge guy, and I mean, it's crazy actually that Rexon is even taller than him. So
I was surprised by that too. Yeah.
Yeah, we saw them in the walkouts and the lineups as we were a little taken aback by it, but anywho, the Soniqs once again will tackle the upstairs first, and DG are committed for a second round in a row to this offsite play. Kansan is droned inappropriately. He could potentially pick up a kill onto Mark, who's just arm's length, sitting in the bathroom, waiting ever so patiently. It sounds like he might have mute jammers protecting his very identity. Call it witness protection, I suppose, because nobody's going to know where he is or who he is. But oh, what a read from Kansan through the wall. Mark, say goodbye. Read out so perfectly in the pre-fire onto the shower. We'll get the opening pick for the Soniqs.
Clearly not protected enough, but here's the run out from Iconic, and it fails. Grixer with a great reaction, and that's 2 kills for 2 in the favor of the Soniqs. This top floor clear has been absolutely stellar. Disrupt are struggling to take any fight, no matter how wild the engagement actually is. It'll be a continued clear of the top floor. This time, Disrupt are a little bit more passive. They've got 3 players in the bottom floor. And so they've kind of flipped the script a little bit. 3 anchors instead of 3 roamers. And I don't know that it's going to work out so well for them, to be honest. They did get Grixer down to low HP thanks to Iconic's run out. But as Retro gets downed and finished off in blue by Rexon, I mean, that's an easy kill for Rexon. He's just peeking the drop there. It's looking all but over for Disrupt for the second round in a row.
See you on the other side. Ready to breach.
A bomb has been located.
In position. Setting C4. Grenade out.
15 seconds left. Attackers dropped into user. 10 seconds to go.
And so a good round there for Disrupt, mostly thanks to the hold with the shotgun inside of Moto from J90. What a defense there with the shotgun blasts. Unfortunately, I don't think that anyone, I don't think that it was caught. Well played to J90. He couldn't make it happen in the first round, but he certainly made it happen in the second.
Attackers need to
So
locate
Disrupt,
and defuse
despite
bomb.
all odds being against them, were able to hold on to a Moto with the shotgun out and take their first round on the board. What an impressive showing. Unfortunately, they weren't able to... Unfortunately, Soniqs weren't able to persevere. They had every advantage, but they just let it slip away in the end. It will be a defense of cash next round for Disrupt. Clutches like those are pretty awesome to see when they do happen. Unfortunately, they're not very reliable, so you've got to sure up your actual strategy. I am worried about Disrupt, despite them winning there, because if they aren't able to start taking more of the utility in their favor, or those early engagements in their favor, it'll start to slip away from them later in the match. Going into round number 3 now. Soniqs setting up to take control of the platform. Looks like Shuttle wants to bandit trick. This is a dangerous prospect, to say the least. We don't see a lot of bandit tricking. Not these days. Iconic will get the first kill. It's a C4 onto the Logi hatch. Something else you don't see a whole lot, but it works out, and Kansan goes down. He's going to have to learn from that one moving forward. Pre-workout Yeti on the platform, waiting for his opportunity to open up the wall. Because there's no Maverick, since he's banned, bandit tricking is actually plenty viable. The Thatcher can stop the bandit batteries from being useful, but Shuttle's just going to pick it up and place it down again, especially considering how slow that A Selma is. J90 will get the second kill this time for Disrupt. They are putting up early kills in that first minute of the round. Down in the bottom of garage, he'll kill a player in stock. Bricks are eliminated now, which means that Shuttle doesn't even need to trick. He can place his batteries and move on, but he's going to continue juggling as he knows it's working to slow down the attack from the Soniqs. Not a whole lot of time left here for Soniqs to actually make a change in their attack. They do have the hard destruction, but they just don't have the man count to make a concerted effort on any avenue. And with the main platform still not open, things are looking desperate. Good self-sustain from Mark inside of rafters. He can keep himself alive even without a Jaeger. All he needs are those discs. Especially with the absence of nades on the attack, he's really not that worried. Hard destruction into garage. It seems like that's going to be the focus for the Soniqs in this round. 2 on the door, 1 in through bottom garage, and it's all on Mark to hold on to this position himself. He's doing a good job so far. Lots of damage done, and there's the first kill onto Yeti. He won't get the second, though, as Rexon with the refrag and control over rafters swoops in. Pushing up to 90 now, and he's going to be able to work some magic, hopefully, off of these, not rotate holes, but bullet holes made for control over the site. Peeking into red, and it's not a great angle to hold, but he might be able to make something happen from it. Should be easy for Disrupt to stop this push from the Soniqs, though, considering their man count advantage, especially with Shuttle being in server. This is a great position for him. C4 takes down Rexon, but Super, with 1 kill for himself, is going to rotate to get that diffuser at the garage door before reconvening with the site. 3 bodies up in the site, 13 seconds left, and Super just doesn't really have a lot of options here. He's going to push in, and there it is. Iconic, the final kill of the round.
I'm back, by the way.
Welcome back, Parker.
Thank you. It's nice to be back. My internet dropped for a solid 20 seconds, which of course destroys everything. So I needed a full reboot. I actually missed round number 2, but it appears that Disrupt won that one. That was amazing because it was a 2v5.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly. So
J90
I'll have to go back and rewatch that one.
Yeah. I feel kind of bad because sometimes like I can't hear you, but then you're still on production. So I thought you were still there. And and J90 got like a 3-piece in the span of a couple seconds. I don't think anyone was casting it.
Well, that's perfect. See, lots of amateur casters, Michael, will now be able to go back and re-watch it and cast over it themselves. It'll be a wonderful thing, won't it? So
a gift to the community.
A lot of amateur casters even will say to me, you know, like, how can I get involved? How can I start casting, etc.? And I'll always say the same thing. Go back, mute a VOD that you haven't watched and cast over top of that. And in this particular case, well, there's a portion you're not even going to need to mute. You can just watch it and cast it. So, anywho, I'm back, and we are seeing... Is this the first time we're seeing Aruni? Because she wasn't in play...
I think so.
She wasn't in the last round, was she?
No, I haven't been seeing an Aruni that I can recall. This is the first time that I'm remembering. So this, I guess, would be the first of an A. It's kind of neat to see new operators come into competitive play. And I think as an operator, Aruni is one of those that is certainly very powerful in her control. Speaking of very powerful, she's in the hands of J90, who you talked about, Parker, and I agree, is one of those players that stands out. Well, he has been standing out through these first 3 rounds. 7 kills to the name. Impressive performance.
obviously he is another former member of the Soniqs too. I know that we fixate a lot on Iconic, but let's not overlook the fact that while J90 was on this team way back when he was helping alongside Lags fill in for both Sleben and Gomphy, who had run aground with their visas. So he also comes from this Sonic school, and well, he's obviously grown quite a lot. That's an impressive tally for him so far, and he was instrumental, as I said, in holding down the fort for Disrupt in that Dark Zero Nerd Street Gamers Pro-Am.
Bomb has been located.
He certainly was. Good destruction there onto the jacuzzi wall from Super. Now with that open, they can shift their focus to the site, hitting it more directly. Sonics are in a good position. Now, considering the bandit tricking in play, obviously I don't expect them to get into the bathroom, but at least some progress made here from the Sonics. It's better than what we saw from them in the last round.
Just a bit of utility dump, and obviously the Sonics are a little bit wary of somebody pushing out from that dirt run out. I don't think Shuttle's going to be able to get this one in time. No, he doesn't. He misses it by a hair, just a little bit too delayed on his end, but he will get the follow-up, which will at least keep him somewhat safe in the bathroom here. But unfortunately for him, this is not ideal because he doesn't exactly have a way out without his legs getting shot away at.
Oh, there's the Zofia lifeline to deny the bandit tricking. Shuttle is all but a dead man at this point, and he gets out with a sliver of HP. That was a narrow one for Shuttle. And actually, look at that. It's going to be a first kill for Disrupt. Mark comes in at cash, able to pick up the first on to Grixer. There's your Thatcher gone, but he's already done his job, so it's not the worst for the Sonics.
And with that opened up, he can just stare longingly at it and wait to see if somebody's going to push in. But the Sonics know that they've got the clock working against them at this point, and it's narrowing down to the do or die time zone that we tend to see with only 30 seconds remaining. And DG's got a good split, watching every single avenue as Super wanders into the smoke. And Sonic's HP just being chunked away. They find themselves under the board, though, claiming Mark. Shuttle knows there's one at the window, but he can't really react with how little HP he has, and because of it, Retro falls, as does Iconic. All of a sudden, the Sonics now have the upper hand, but there's Shuttle with a tiny bit of HP. J90 looks the wrong way as the Sonics pick up the final 2 kills in short succession, and because of that, we're tied back up at 2 apiece.
Beautifully played there from the Sonics. I love the way that they established control and didn't overextend. The Aroni Gates looked like they might have been a problem for a while there, but no, because the Sonics weren't playing for an aggro push. They were playing for control and those angles that we saw them use to blend Disrupt in their own sight. It got really bad after we saw the bandit trick fail in the bathroom. That was Shuttle trying his best, but it just wasn't good enough in the moment. He put in a good effort, though. Most of the problem started after he let the first wall get opened up, because that allowed for Zofia to throw a lifeline in through that hole and prevent the bandit tricking on the other wall, which, of course, is going to result in your death. And good control for the Sonics, which they leveraged well.
I will say this. Even though we've somewhat stepped out of this utility soak meta, there is a lot of check work that teams need to do, or a big checklist that teams need to do before... I smashed the idioms, by the way. Before they can actually push into the bomb site. And I mean, it's very apparent with how long it's taking the Sonics to find their footing. Now, we don't necessarily know how long this team has had to gel on every single map. You know, if you were to ask Joe, bro, he would probably give you a better answer, as I'm sure would Seth as well on this team. But it's entirely possible that attacking on Clubhouse isn't exactly their strongest suit right now. I mean, obviously take into account that this does still tend to be a map that favors the defense, and you find the Sonics in a position where they might just still be putting together all the pieces for this team, a lot more than Disrupt. And we talked about this in the preamble where, yeah, I mean, you're importing 4 players for the Sonics here, but they all have to start to play a new system. That's a lot more work than just slotting in 2 players on DG to a system that is already largely in place with some small tweaks here and there.
Ooh, good start to the soft destruction here on a basement defense. Already some breaches going off in the hallway. That's going to give you control over bottom main and the rotate through church door. Disrupt, very different strategy than what we've seen from them so far on this site. They're opting for a hard anchor strat. This is commonplace on the site, bottom floor of Clubhouse. And it could work out for Disrupt. it's mostly going to come down to how much control the Sonics are able to leverage. Like, are they able to open up the kitchen drop? Or do they lose their heart destruction there? How's the impact tricking? With Habana in play, the impact tricking shouldn't be too much of an issue. But who knows? Anything could happen. There's only one impact, and it's J90, so I don't expect any, really. So here's your drop opened up, and that control established for the Sonics gives them good leverage over the site itself, whether they execute into Arsenal or not.
You could see one of the other changes that was made to Ashe that we haven't really fixated on as much over the last couple months, obviously, was her losing her flashbangs, and with it she gets breaches to go with her other set of breaches, and she also got an increase to the amount of breaching charges to go with those breaching rounds. So she's got 3 and 3, or the other way around. I always end up getting them confused, but regardless, tons of explosive potential here from the Ashe, and they're putting it to good use above. Now, obviously, there's some answers that you can see from DG, but they've only got 1 nitro cell, and it's already been used at this point. So now it's really just a waiting game for Disrupt. They have managed to stave off defeat on that roam. They've kept all their bodies relatively secure inside of the bomb site. So the final push for round number 5 is going to set us up very conveniently at a 5v5.
Only 1 gas canister left with 35 seconds on the clock, and that is not ideal, that's for sure. It's like a lifeline going down the hallway there for Rexon, and I'm not sure what the idea was for that lifeline. I don't know where the execution is for Sonics. And as the gunning starts, it's J90 to take down Grixer. So that's not ideal for the attack. They have to pump the gas here, and they have to decide where exactly they're going to do it. Inside of blue seems to be the answer. It's Retro to lose the fight, and now blue control for the Sonics. That's great, but they've got to deal with the shield and armory. They're doing a great job of just that. It's only J90 all of a sudden. He's in dirt with a quad. Now it's an ace! J90 bringing it home from Dirt Tunnel, and he cannot lose a single gunfight. That's his 2nd time in the basement clutching up.
Well, I guess land just happens to be J90's playground here, Michael, because that's what? The last 2 defenses of Church. He's collected at least 8 kills, maybe 9 kills. It was a 4K all the way back in round number 2. Really impressive stuff. And I hate to toot my own horn here, Michael, but there's a reason why I said that the 2 people that I'm going to be watching are J90 and Retro. They impressed me more than anybody else in that entire series in the Dark Zero Nerd Street Gamers Pro-Am.
Toot away.
And now here we are. Very good reason for that. Extraordinary play from J90. And I know that people are going to try to undermine what he just did and say, well, you know, he's in Dirt Tunnel. Yeah, I know. He's got the Alda as Maestro, and the Alda goes burr, and everybody's going to joke about that. But that's not where it started. J90 was able to hold down a very pivotal spot as the rest of his teammates just fell around him. And you can see that he is a master at playing off of the intel that he has. And LAN is a very different game. There's a lot of pressure involved. I don't even know if J90 has actually competed on a tier 1 LAN at this point. So what a showing so far from him. And his team obviously has a lot to thank for him. The rest of the team, by the way, is a combined 7 kills to his 12. So that is quite the tally right now. And despite that, despite J90's numbers, things are a lot more even over on the Sonic side, with the exception of a very quiet game from Grixer.
Yeah, J90 was played in the US Division, in the major quals, in the SI quals, and I don't think he's played on a LAN like this exactly. So yeah, this is a big deal for him, and he's certainly proving that he's got it. My guess is he probably felt bad that his last clutch was not casted, so he had to give us another one. And he had to one-up himself. He is currently... he is elevating himself beyond this match right now with 12 kills over just 5 rounds. That's crazy. Meanwhile, also still crazy, Shuttle with the bandit tricking, and, well,
no chance.
Yeah, no.
No chance at all.
It's not going to happen. You're dealing with the Selmas from the Ace. He could throw 1 on each wall after the EMPs come in. You've got very little chance of success there.
Yeah, that's a hard spot to be in. And I mean, we've talked about how the changes to Hibana, we've talked about how the addition of all this other utility does not allow tricking to happen anywhere near as effectively as you'd want it to. And I mean, wait until Flores comes in, and it's going to be even harder for you to successfully bandit trick anything when there's a little explodey drone rolling at you and you have to fall off your position. So valiant effort from Shuttle on what will be the last defense for Disrupt, but it's the trying to roll a boulder back up the hill. First kill is going to come to Grixer, who, like I said, has been quite quiet so far in this game, just doing the utility work that his team needs. But with it, they've been able to open up the site and, most importantly, take out J90, the star for Disrupt in this match.
That's a huge pick for sure. It's going to be interesting to see how Disrupt does without their star player. There's a good kill for Iconic. I mean, bottom garage, down goes Super, and another one for Iconic. He's really lighting up, and it's necessary with the current lineup here. Disrupt managing to bring themselves back into this round, and that's going to make it even worse for the Soniqs as Mark just peeks onto garage door, gets a freebie, peeks into garage, gets another, and a third for Mark. Incredible gunplay. Disrupt look absolutely unfalterable. That doesn't make any sense. Unwaverable.
That's okay. It's your first match back, and
It's been a while.
it has been. It really has been, but it's nice.
Yeah,
It's a nice treat, and it's nice to return to it. But regardless, I wanted to say one small cheeky thing, by the way. There's a reason why you keep shadows on.
Yep.
And you saw it from Mark's perspective. You can see from the way that the light box is, you can see the shadow of the person peeking the door about a second before they peek the garage door. Now, online, you might be able to ghost pretty effectively and quick peek around the door and kill somebody on rafters. You can't necessarily do the same thing on LAN. You're going to be dealing with very low ping next to no peekers advantage, even though it will still always be present. It's going to be significantly reduced. And because of that, the attackers are at a massive disadvantage. They can't swing around that door the same way that they want to online. There are little small changes that LAN will make that we will see more of as time goes on. But yeah, I gotta say, Disrupt putting in the scoreline that you expect on that first half. They looked pretty solid. They had some good individual performances. Most of it is gonna go to J90. That's just the way it works with how he played. So
10 seconds left.
Yeah. I thought for a little bit there we were going to have some struggles for Disrupt after just J90 got picked off early. But to my surprise, Iconic and Mark put up a great performance, mostly thanks to Iconic with those 2 early kills. I know Mark got the triple at the end, of course. But Iconic not only got those 2 kills down in Lounge, he also distracted all of the attackers who were trying to execute into Garage. They were all worried about Lounge. They weren't worrying so much about Mark above. And that does say a lot about the presence of a player. Iconic pulled hard for his team in that last round. So now that we've got the half swap in, Soniqs are on the advantageous side. This is Clubhouse after all. Some people are saying it's trending towards the attackers. That's fair. But things are a little bit different, I guess, with the Rooney coming in. I think that the meta in general is actually going through a lot of changes right now, especially considering how stale the game's meta is. A lot of teams are trying to find new ways to interpret things and to change up how they their routine on any given map.
I am kind of surprised with how similar this meta looks. It doesn't look like there's been that much of a change, right? Which obviously at the pro level is going to be very different from what you see in your everyday matches. A lot of people that play this game are not going to be playing this at a top level competitive. So they're going to be playing in ranked, they're going to be playing in quick match, etc. So, anywho, G36C in the hands of Mark is a little bit intriguing, and he manages to take a chunk out of Yeti as we hit the halfway mark here in round number 7. The very first defense for the Soniqs is upstairs on Cash and CCTV. There hasn't been that much movement on the bomb site just yet from Disrupt.
Guessing you brought that G36C just for the 1.5, which is fair. A lot of players really enjoy the 1.5, and that's another thing that's not talked about too much. Those optics make a huge difference, and where you lie on the spectrum of what you actually enjoy regarding the new optics is different player to player. Clearly, Mark really does enjoy the 1.5. Now, speaking of one, we only have a minute left here for the Disrupt attack to mount some kind of offense. They're not shaping up for anything in particular. Maybe, looks like it's going to be a garage execute as they get the player on rafters. That's huge, and Mark will swing in through the breach. Ill-advised, though, is he's downed by the Alda. Not finished off yet, but he's essentially dead, as there's a very little chance he's going to be retrieved in server.
J90 unlimited HP by the doorway, Iconic by his side. There's Yeti just tearing it up right now. The kill feed is his. Mark has not been retrieved just yet. And even though that successful entry from Iconic on Garage has worked out the way it is, he's got quite a lot of work ahead of him. He'll need to vault on over, but there's somebody waiting, I'm sure. There's the smoke, and it'll manage to take out Mark. It was a perfect bait for Iconic. Will now need to go frag chasing. Significant damage done, and he downs Super. His old IGL. 1v1 match on the line, but no, the Alda in the hands of Kansan is better, and the first defense breaks in favor of the Soniqs.
Massive round there from Kansan. Those 1v1s can be incredibly intimidating, but he just perseveres. Beautiful stuff from Greenbox. We've been seeing the Maestros pulling in rounds for both teams now. Soniqs starting to close the gap. It seemed like Disrupt were the better team in that first half. Well, I mean, they clearly were with the 4-2 split. But as we've talked about before, and I'll reiterate now, a 4-2 split is easily dealt with if you don't lose your cool as the team going into the advantaged side. In this case, that's Soniqs, and they clearly have not lost that cool. Huge round from Yeti. I got to be honest, his 3-piece downstairs in Lounge, after that, I don't think that should have come down to a 1v1. That was very scary for the Soniqs for just a second there. Iconic almost clutched up, and those almost clutch up rounds, in my opinion, hurt the team that wins a lot. At least mentally, it's not. It's not a good situation to be going from a sure thing to a are we gonna take this? So a little bit of pressure there on the Soniqs. They have to win more convincingly in future rounds.
This has been a remarkably close game so far between these two teams. I really got to hand it to them. Not that we thought that it wouldn't be. I know that there was, and there will continue to be, some questions about these squads as we go deeper into the season. You know, there's a number of play days remaining where anything can happen. And right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the way that the play days are set up, and because there are only 9 teams competing, that there should be some, how would we put this? There should be a bye for every single team here. So there will be time off for them to, I guess, come back and continue to work at it. The funny thing is that with all the downtime that we had, oh, nice C4 to start things off onto Mark from above. But as I go back into it, there was a lot of time off, but the roster window was oddly timed. So a lot of teams had to continue on with their current lineup. And because of that, they couldn't make changes. So even though these teams have had these rosters for a couple weeks, they weren't really able to practice with them that much before that because of that roster window.
Yeah, it does make things a little bit difficult, but I think, honestly, what we're seeing, at least from Soniqs and Disrupt so far, they're looking really gelled. The level of Siege, I always like to talk about this at the start of a new season. The level of Siege just seems to be going up and up and up in terms of what players can produce, strategically and in terms of mechanical skill. And I would say that that's true for this match especially. I think for both of these teams, they've proven themselves to be far better at just the game in general than a lot of people would have given them credit for in the past. And it's great to see them come a long way. You know, Soniqs and Disrupt were rivals going all the way back to Challenger League in, I think, 2019. Now, these orgs have been at each other's throats for a long time. So it's just, you know, it's cool to see what they are now as teams. And I mean, we're getting quite a match out of this first one of today.
We absolutely are. Well, that soft destruction by Mark that was taken out earlier on could be a major problem here. You can see some of the hatches are still soft. The one that Yeti lords over in stock being a good example of that. He had tried to engage with J90 earlier, and it scared the Hibana off the rappel, but I mean, you've got a minute now to try and get all of these hatches opened up. So it's exactly what he's going to do. And well, I mean, the Soniqs just need to sit and wait. This is the same style of turtle setup that we tend to see from teams on this exact bomb site. So Yeti from above, he's going to wait patiently. Super taking some damage. Unsure from where, likely the kitchen hatch, possibly the bottom of the main stairs. Yeti decided to be bold and brash, but there's a Claymore there to greet him for that and thank him. So the Soniqs will now scramble to push out DG as their advance begins. And of course, there's an easy kill for Rexon, who reads that out after hitting the Soraya gate and now looks up towards the kitchen as well. Disrupt are going to be falling to their doom unless something crazy can happen here, as the Soniqs have every avenue towards the bomb site cut off. Dominoes falling right now for the Soniqs as they find themselves quite easily hanging on to this round, and they stitch 2 together. With that, these two teams are tied up 4 apiece, and you can see Grixer obviously very excited by that one.
Grixer is yelling at Disrupt. I'm pretty sure, because those are the only people to his left. Now, I mean, they are all wearing sound canceling headphones, but not quite that canceling. You're going to be able to hear people screaming at you like that. And what a play from Rexon in that round. He was, in my opinion, he just was the hero of that round. The play into kitchen, you might call it brazen. I certainly would. His positioning in the hallway, this very same, extremely brazen, very dangerous, but it worked out. And because he regained control of Arsenal with so little time on the clock, the attackers had no opportunity to re-clear Arsenal. They just had to go for the drop. I don't even think they knew that Rexon had retaken Arsenal. So, no matter how you look at it, it's just a straight dub for Rexon and his team. Well played to him. It'll be a gym defense next. We'll see if the Soniqs are able to continue their perfect defensive streak. I don't see it as likely. Disrupt, if they're going to take any attacking rounds, it'll be here.
Yeah, this is typically when your cycle tends to break as teams figure you out and they go to a bomb site that is... It can be notoriously difficult for you to hang on to. Now, obviously, we saw some ways that teams have tried to adapt. Ace has made this bomb site even harder to hold as a defender, and that's because, well, you've got a couple panels that you need to hang on to, and Ace can open them up, along with the changes to Hibana, especially when both of them are used in conjunction. The thing is that Disrupt doesn't really like running Hibana all that much. You saw J9O on that role on the previous round, but back onto Ace, he will go. He can also flex onto a variety of different entry to flex roles. Retro is going to be on the Thermite and is quite strong on that role, as you saw back in round number 1, even though it was unsuccessful for Disrupt. I think it's hard to argue that Retro still didn't do exactly what he needed to do. And 30 seconds into the round, the very first thing from Disrupt, and the very first thing on their list, is open up the wall leading into construction. That's where one of the exothermic charges go off, and it's clearer access for DG to go in that way.
They need to continue that attack all the way into Cash, where you see Grixer. Rexon trying to support from the top of red stairs. These positions are hard for the defense to play, but essential in delaying the attack. If they don't play these spots, then... well, frankly, it's too easy for the attack to set up a very convenient and effective crossfire in the site itself from Workshop and the balcony. Speaking of shots landing, though, no crossfire needed for Grixer. He's going to pretty easily land one onto Mark as he swings out a tuck, and he'll take down the Ash on platform early on. That gives a decided advantage to the Soniqs, who can now fall back as they please. They've wasted time, and they've gotten a pick. They don't have to stay here, but they will.
And there goes Super, removed from the fray, as I talked about him. Retro, who's usually deceptively good on that hard breach roll. Both Grixer as well as the Frost of Rexon are playing point over by the top of red, and only one of them is credited with the kill before being subdued by Shuttle, so that'll leave Rexon to play freely. Yeti is just a little bit of ways off site as Rexon now gets punished by Iconic. So DG have found their way into the building, and the Soniqs have scrambled to try to hold on to this map control that they desperately need. Yeti's at the top of the stairs, and he peeks over towards Jacuzzi. It's not a smart idea, as now another will peek towards that direction as well. Last one remaining for the Soniqs is Kansan. He'll tussle with Retro as they know they've got him trapped in the bathroom. He'll get flashed out. There's a deployable shield behind him. All the flashbangs landing. A great pivot from Kansan. Can he make a miracle work from this spot? He's got some access to the diffuser. He'll be stunned out of his mind, and he's got the follow-up, but Iconic is better. That was almost possible for Kansan to pull off, but it's just a little bit too late. Good round from Disrupt, and they managed to take the lead back here in this matchup.
You can see the relief in Iconic's eyes in that 1v1. We've been seeing too many of those situations play out with this match. If I could use one word to describe this matchup, it would be chaotic. We're seeing clutch after clutch after clutch, and boy, is it scary for these teams. It could have gone easily the way of the Soniqs there at the very end. I love the play from Kansan using his impact to destroy the deployable shield because he had information on one of the attackers behind it, just narrowly missing out on that final fight thanks to the pre-fire from Iconic. Iconic learned his lesson on that pre-fire when he got pre-fired in server from Cash. Man, what a back and forth affair. Strategically, that round was definitely Disrupts. The main thing was Iconic finding himself into Logi. Being in Logi, Iconic was able to pick apart the Soniqs defense, especially over by Cash. early on in the round when the Sonics were getting those picks, I thought that they were going to take the round through and through. But because of the lack of presence in Logi, the Sonics really crippled themselves. And I think that's pretty much like, that's the main thing. They just didn't hold Logi well enough. And Iconic took full advantage.
5 seconds to go. Attackers must locate.
Cycle begins anew upstairs in cache CCTV here for the Sonics, who, I mean, both of these teams have been involved in some, what I consider to be some pretty odd pushes and odd plays that don't necessarily pay off for them. I mean, swinging when you don't need to swing, when you think that you still have intel maybe, and there's plenty of time for you to just stand pat. I'm not sure of that. Additionally, the one thing that's going well for DG, as you can see, is everybody except for J90 has found their way heavily onto the scoreboard. J90, after netting 7 or 8 kills over 2 rounds, has really had a quiet half, Michael.
Yeah, he's been falling asleep a little bit, but it's okay. He's on hard breach, and he did enough work in the first half to give himself a nice cushy period of waiting. It's not the worst thing when your top frag, steps back if the rest of the team can step up. And as you mentioned just now, Parker, that's what's happening with Disrupt. The rest of the team are really stepping up to fill that void. Unfortunately for Mark, he's not going to be able to get that Melusi. And matter of fact, that's all of the Explo that could be used to destroy the Melusi now gone, except for the Selmas from J90, and I doubt they're going to use them for that. So without a Jaeger in play, because of all the nade bans, that Melusi will stay alive on the server rack and will give an advantage to the Sonics if there's a platform push at any point in this round.
Yeah, obviously that's going to be a little distressing. Whoa, we talk about swings, and Grixer should not have been able to make that shot, but he does anyway as he pushes out towards the breach, and down goes Iconic. This is SQ just simply realizing that they can take these chances, and they're not going to get punished for it, because look at that. Grixer didn't suffer a single point of damage, though Rexon and Kansan have now. So This is tough for DG after Iconic has been one of the best players for Disrupt in the second half.
He's really been stepping up, and he's not going to be able to make that play this round. Also, crucially, is it looks like this is a garage take without any garage control. And, well, that's obviously not going to help you if you're on the attack. Speaking of, down goes Mark. That's your Ashe and Zofia eliminated. And bye-bye to Retro. As from 90 in Raptors, Rexon just is unable to be dislodged. He's putting up a great performance there. Now it's all on J90 and Shuttle, who have not been the loudest players in this second half. Down goes J90, so no kills for him. He's still relegated to the first half, it seems. Shuttle really having a tough time there. It'll be a flawless round as Grixer swoops in from Raptors and picks up that final frag. A certainly one-sided affair.
Well, it certainly feels like overtime is going to happen. Regardless, we're going to go all the way with our very first map here and our very first matchup between these teams. Just as I found it very funny that the very first EUL matchup that we saw was played on Chalet, we're seeing the same thing here now in regards to needing all 12 rounds. Obviously, this new best-of-1 setup does indeed have overtime. If overtime is required, the Sonics will defend twice. Right now, if you look at it, well, it's very much a defender's game here on Clubhouse. DG won 4 on defense. The Sonics so far have 3. The Sonics will need to do better than 4-2 on their half if they want to avoid overtime. They'll need to win 5 outright, leaving only 1 attacking round for Disrupt. And with what we've seen so far, there have been some pretty rock-solid defenses here from the Sonics, and I haven't really looked at these defenses and been too worried. So it's entirely possible, if not somewhat likely, that the Sonics are going to be able to win 5 of these rounds. I don't know what DG is going to need to do to try and find some stronger footing, because right now this half is entirely the Sonics.
Yeah, it's been looking really good for them. And we did mention earlier how a part of that is how J90 has kind of fallen asleep in the second half. He was so dominant in the first, it looked like we were going to see Disrupt walk away with the match just through and through. But now it's been a little bit of a struggle, and even that one round that Disrupt did manage to get came down to that 1v1 in Bathroom. Now, to be fair to Disrupt, if we do see a reflection of the first half in the second half, that is to say the round count going 4-2, 4-2, but for opposite teams, then I mean that gives us overtime. So if we get to overtime, you know, it's just going to favor the team that takes the defense first. So it's not the end of the world for either team necessarily. We're seeing a very rigid result from a lot of these rounds, even though they're coming down to nail biter 1v1s.
10 seconds to go.
Oh, back down to church they go. The Soniqs, obviously the only small misstep in their defense was none other than Jim and Master. Everything outside of that seemed to be going quite well. So
Attackers drop the diffuser.
let's see exactly how they're going to play this one. This is obviously going to be a similar upstairs setup for them. You can see the barricades going in, the reinforcements being used, and of course the castle barricades too. They've left that stock hatch soft, and that was Yeti's domain on the previous round. He played up there quite aggressively. Now it's not going to take too long for Shuttle to determine that, hey, that hatch is soft. Let's do something with that. DG have opened up some of the upstairs CCTV wall, so Grixer is now going to be playing point off of that, still just safely inside of cache.
This roam is proven to be fairly solid for the Soniqs as opposed to what we saw from Disrupt, and it'll get better as the first kill leans in favor of the Soniqs. It's Super from Oil Pit to eliminate Iconic, who is just trying to rush his way in, it seems. Not a great result there for Iconic, and they definitely need him to perform as he's been the playmaker on attack. As Super swings into dirt, though, Retro will swat him down. Better in that gunfight, that's for sure. It's got to taste good, and it's got to be good as well for Disrupt, who needed everything they could get, but as they lose J90, that's their two top performers for the match overall gone, and the focus is shifting for the Soniqs. That C4 rotation made at Deep Arsenal, that's because they know they can make it. There's nobody by main for Disrupt to give a pinch, but all the while, look at this, an attempted plant for Disrupt, stopped by Kansan, who peeks at the right time to get himself a triple kill. It's only Shuttle now who will get one, but not two, as Rection shuts him down. Soniqs able to keep on their streak of the basement.
I want whatever, that Grixer energy right now.
Yeah.
Grixer was somebody who often did not get the spotlight on E United, if you recall. Obviously, Yeti and Alfama were very big personalities on that team, and then Rexon had an incredible run where he was, if I remember, the top performer for an entire half, maybe even entire stage. Then Kansan comes onto this team, and he has an impressive first showing, and Grixer's just kind of there. But obviously, some high-impact frags from Grixer so far, just doing his work, and is proving why he was somebody who was sought out alongside Rexon by Super when he was rebuilding the Soniqs team as a man of interest. And right now, this whole Soniqs team is just looking really good. DG cannot buy a pivotal kill at the moment, and it's really hurting them everywhere they go. They can't entry that effectively. They're having trouble in their gunfights. Their star performer, who was 12-4 in that first half, is now 0-4 through the second half. This is not where you necessarily want to be. So I'm struggling now with Disrupt, and this is something where it's like we've seen this with this old Disrupt team as well, was that they kind of get in these mental ruts and they have a hard time breaking out of it. Is that what we're seeing right now? Is this just a team that is having some difficulties being able to get themselves back in the match? Are they mentally defeated?
I don't know.
It didn't seem that way in the DZ Pro-Am that we saw with Nerd Street Gamers, but now it certainly seems like things are back to normal with DG.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, Parker. It could be that the stakes are so high that exactly what you're saying is coming to pass. That's the mental getting to Disrupt here. I will say they really need to not be giving out free picks like the one that Iconic gave out to Super by Oil Pit early in your round, in last round, of course. That's crucial. If they want to see success here, then they need to be a little bit more tight-knit. Because the Soniqs are going to be tight-knit. We've seen that from them consistently. They are well refined in their executions, in their defense setups. They're not taking too many overextensions. The only mistake they've really made was the last time they defended Jim, where they lost Logi control, and Iconic exploited that to take the round. And it doesn't seem like that's going to happen this round. Yeti is positioned squarely inside of Logi. He's holding on to it. And look at the time start to tick away here for Disrupt.
Yeah, it's over a minute now that's been burned in this round, and they're just trying to crush all the drones that find themselves heading in that direction. Soniqs are posted up, and this is a gym master defense, let's not forget that. But obviously, this is very reminiscent of what we saw before. Rexon will be aided by the magnet that's on the wall. Iconic taking some damage in that very first fray, and I don't know if there's any intel coming from the stairs, but instead, Rexon's going to reposition off of that deployable shield, spotted but for a second on the drone before he goes back in there to safety. Well, the Sonics start things off really well, and there's Grixer. He picks up 2 kills, and there's only 3 more bodies for them to find to shut Disrupt out and prevent overtime. It's a hell of a comeback from the Sonics right now, and it seems to be going full force.
Seemingly, they're going to be able to stop this push in through Cash in its tracks. As Shuttle does get 1 kill, things look a little bit brighter for Disrupt, but I don't know that it's going to matter too much. Looking at the setup right now, Soniqs has every advantage possible in terms of positioning, angles, HP, man count. It's all looking good, and it'll look even better as Shuttle goes down at the top of red. Kansan will be refragged by Mark on the workshop window, but as Retro is eliminated, a 1 HP, oh no. A 1 HP Mark will step on a mat, and the Sonics, thanks to the Frost mat, will take their first match in this season of NAL.
And lots of words being exchanged from the Sonics. They're obviously very excited, and look at that. Super's doing his best bird impression with his hands. A hell of a victory for the Sonics as they take the 5-1 second half, proving that Clubhouse is still very much a defender's playground, and I think the Sonics have a lot to be proud of. That was a great team effort from everybody. Rex and Kansan leading the way, and Grixer obviously stepping up as well. It was a supporting cast that they needed, and because of that, the Sonics managed to come out with a victory. This is a team that for a long period of time, Super had said that they are capable of reaching the top 4. Obviously, that did not come to fruition when they had their old roster. It seems like it could potentially be in reach with how high people were hyping up Disrupt prior to this matchup.
Certainly does, Parker. What an impressive performance from the Sonics, and this is despite how well Disrupt played as well. I do think that Disrupt did get a little bit in their heads at the end there. Possibly the stakes involved, just being a little bit too much. But just one more mistake made than the Sonics, it seemed like, every single round, and that's what ended up costing Disrupt in the end. I think it's certainly something that they can come back from, though, leading further into the season, because they've shown a lot of promise today and in recent history.
Yeah, both of these teams obviously have things that they can look forward to with that performance. I mean, Disrupt, it's kind of a bummer that they start off the NAL with this result after the high that they were riding from that Pro-Am, but there's plenty more play days ahead for them to make it up. As for the Sonics, it certainly seems like they're exactly where they need to be, and well, we'll see if they can keep that up over the course of this stage as well. But that's a break ready for us after this very first matchup. We've still got 3 more best of ones to come, so don't touch that browser. We'll be right back.